In 2020, Democrat politicians across the country hitched themselves to the Biden train thinking that he would be their key to success. Little did they know that between naps, abusing reporters, and churning out erratic policies, this conductor was going to be blowing full speed ahead into a ravine. The question now, can Democrats detach themselves from Biden fast enough? You're watching Politics Corner. Stay tuned.
Hi folks, welcome to Politics Corner. Hey Ishaan.
Hi Pallavi. Now I do want to contradict myself a little bit, okay? Contrary to my intro, I do not think that it is just Joe Biden who is the start and end to Democrats' problems. I think that he is definitely reflective of their failures in terms of approval rating, which it's not doing great, by the way. Depending on your source, it is somewhere between 30 and 40%, so even by the best of estimates, it's pretty abysmal.
Yeah.
But he's the face of the Democratic Party, so he's reflective of all their failures. That is not to say, though, that he is necessarily responsible for all of them. But for the entirety of this episode, there is one theme that is going to hold evergreen, and I hope that you can hold on to it, and it is Democrats reliably, like you can bet money on it, guaranteed win, ruin everything that they touch. So, Pallavi, why don't you start us off with Congress? Tell us, what have Democrats failed at this year alone? We could go back to like 1990s if we want, but we don't have time. So, this year.
Well, yes, 21, 22, ever since Joe Biden, became president. I think some of their most erratic, economic policies is a key example, right? What about Build Back Better? Right? It was just a erratic bill with a lot of spending, a lot of government sponsorship, and I know we covered this in a previous episode.
Two.
Yes, we've been talking about it for a while.
It was a big topic.
It was, right? It was $3.5 trillion, and
it was $6 trillion, then it was $3.5 trillion, then it was $1.5 trillion. It's gone through all the different iterations.
Right, exactly. And again, right, like what we analyzed, at least from the bill, was it was all about government sponsorship, just creating, help for and creating more welfare programs.
Not to mention the nonsense programs. I mean, climate justice. What is that? Explain.
Yeah.
What is your intent here?
Yeah, I think Joe Manchin did call it out. He said,
It's gimmicky inflationary policy. That's what he said in a quote.
Yeah, it's gimmicky, and it's not very clear where this money's going to be spent on. What is the measure of success?
See, there wasn't one. I think that was the point. The whole point here was he needed to be able to say, look, I spent a big amount of money. That's what I can campaign on. Because he really didn't have much going for him, as we will get to. So Manchin shot it down. Okay, he ended it, and despite Joe Biden's claims that they are being resurrected, Joe Manchin has repeatedly stated that he's not even entertaining the idea of resurrecting Build Back Better. It was a terrible bill from the onset, and he is done with it. So it's over. We're pretty much certain now. It's over.
Yeah, it's pretty much over.
But that's not the only act. Okay, we have to lump these together because we have too many failures and not enough time. But the Freedom to Vote Act and the Voter Rights Act. By the way, when I say that we have too many failures and not enough time, that's why we're moving really fast this episode. If you feel like we're moving too fast, just slow us down to 0.75 speed. Okay, we sound a little drunk, but that's okay.
Yeah, and for all of the topics that we're going to cover, at least most of them, we've already covered them in depth in previous episodes too, so you can always go check those out.
I know we were joking about this. We had so many failures that we were going to say, why don't we do Wheel of Misfortune right here?
Mismanagement, yeah.
Let's start with foreign policy.
Well, I mean, okay, but let's stick to the Congress for a minute, right? And also, I mean, we cannot leave the topic of Congress without mentioning the new Freedom to Vote Act. As soon as Build Back Better got shot down, I think Joe just jumped on like, okay, forget this, bring out my reserve Democrats. And
my reserve Democrats.
and again, right? The too much gimmicky. This bill is also full of gimmicky policy. I mean, where are these reserve voters, right? And where in America are these people that cannot, access the internet or get a photo ID?
I believe, was it PragerU that I reposted on my Instagram story? they conducted the interview in New York where they interviewed a bunch of white liberals in upstate New York, and then they asked them what they thought about voter ID laws. Most of them said, oh, they're racist, they're trying to keep down black people. Then they went over to Harlem and interviewed black people and asked, do you know how to get to the DMV? And they were like, yeah, it's on 25th. Well, do you have an ID? Yeah. Would you feel comfortable showing your ID when it's time to vote? Yeah.
Not just comfortable. I think they were happy to show it.
They were. They were like, yeah, I want to make sure that they know it's me. And then, I believe, what was the next question? Do you know how to use the internet?
Oh my goodness.
Do you have access to computers? Because they say that you don't know how to use the internet. They say that, like, yes, it's 2021. Everyone knows how to use the internet. What's your problem?
I completely agree. I mean, even if there are these voters that don't have access to the internet, then I think the problem that you really need to solve is how to get them, access to the internet and get them photo IDs, not abolish photo ID requirements altogether. I think some of these liberals, especially like the ones you're mentioning, they're extremely condescending, right? Their behavior is like, oh no, those poor wretches, let's make life easier for them. It's stupid. I mean, it's ridiculous.
How would you feel if, we both identify as part of an ethnic minority. How would you feel if liberals actually categorized you and they said, well, just because you're part of this minority, you don't know how to use the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know how to do basic arithmetic. It's like, what? Yeah. You realize the irony here is that you are actually the one who is racist. Yeah. You are the one who is marginalizing people. But anyway, the Freedom to Vote Act, they've tried to bring this bill through in different iterations 3 times now. And every single time, 51 senators said, yeah, no thanks. So then, Elizabeth Warren's solution, let's get rid of the filibuster. Let's change the Senate rules so that we can get this through. Now, here's the thing.
She cracks me up.
She really does crack me up. I think that she is... well, I'll leave it at that. But there's nothing I can say here that won't be taken off of YouTube. But I think her whole thing is, yes, let's change the Senate rules, asterisk, footnote, only when it's politically advantageous. And that's the whole thing. Now, here's the thing. It only would have taken a simple majority to change the Senate rules. Okay? It was a Democrat, Kirsten Sinema this time, who held it up. Check this out.
Support and will continue to vote for legislative responses to address these state laws, including the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act that the Senate is currently considering. And while I continue to support these bills, I will not support separate actions that worsen the underlying disease of division infecting our country.
Okay, so Sinema shot it down.
Yeah, and you know what she said, which was really important. She said, I'm not going to support actions that are going to further add to the divisiveness of our country.
It's down, but I want to take a moment and I want to remove ourselves from Congress because here's the thing. The Democrats have one go-to excuse. You ready? The GOP. Anything can be blamed on the GOP. There's traffic, it's the GOP. There's a war, it's the GOP. We couldn't pass something, it's the GOP. It's always the GOP. The GOP is the reason that you spilled coffee on yourself this morning. The GOP can be blamed for everything except when they don't exist.
Well, also, for Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
She hates the rich and the Elon Musks of the world.
They have a few go-to excuses, but this is like their prime candidate.
I know, yeah.
All right, there's their prime excuse, and here's the problem. You can blame them all you want in the U.S. Federal Senate and Congress, but then why don't we take a look at some bright blue states where they have supermajorities, okay? New York, California. Surely they are getting right to work, cracking down, churning out good policies that are solving problems. Yeah, no.
Yeah, they're churning out policies that are creating problems.
They're creating more problems than they're solving. So why don't we talk about New York, okay? So just like California, they've implemented these forgive and forget crime policies. Yeah, guys, that worked on the kindergarten playground. It doesn't really work when you're dealing with dangerous, violent criminals.
Yeah, no, shake hands and it's all good. We're good.
Yep. And that's basically the policy that they've adopted with crime. Now, these policies have led to huge crime waves and cop killings. I want to take a moment and express our gratitude to the police. And I also want to show you This is a statement from NYPD Commissioner Keechant Sewell. After 2 officers were shot, 1 fatally killed and 1 severely injured in Harlem. Check this out.
I am struggling to find the words to express the tragedy we are enduring. We're mourning and we're angry. The NYPD, New York City, all of us. As I stand here in Harlem Hospital tonight, a New York City police officer has lost his life, murdered, and another one is fighting for his life to survive. We have 4 times this month rushed to the scene of NYPD officers shot by violent criminals. Please pray for our officer that lies in his hospital bed fighting for his life. And every single day appreciate the valor and sacrifice of the men and women of the NYPD. I'll ask Mayor Adams if he wants to say a few words.
That lady isn't dumb. Okay?
It's just so sad.
It is. But here's the thing. Is it just me, or do you notice that she wants to speak out? She wants to say something about the governor. She wants to say something about the mayor. She wants to say something about the DA, because they have all conspired to just let all crimes go, and they are all complicit, and they're all failing to check each other the way that they're supposed to in normal government.
Yeah.
And she wants to speak out, but she can't, probably because she knows that she'll get fired if she does.
Right. I mean, the politicians making these decisions, and, you know, they're sitting tight in their comfortable, safe homes. It's our policemen that are on the front line, and they're risking their lives. And like you said, just, you know, if the crimes are committed by
What
people...
did she say? Within a month.
Yeah.
6 officers shot, 5 killed.
I mean, God, it's just, it's horrific. And again, you know, if the perpetrator are, you know, people of color or of a minority, the DA doesn't want to prosecute them because it's against the public sentiment.
That's not the point. That's not what Law and Order is based on.
It's not based on public sentiment.
If you guys haven't seen the symbol of Lady Justice, she's literally wearing a blindfold with a scale in one hand and the sword in the other. The whole symbol was blind justice. I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're a minority.
No,
The point is, I prosecute the crime.
It has gone to an extreme. Like, you know, this in New York, this is the state of affairs as we heard, and it's sad.
Why don't we transfer over to another state? Another bright blue state in California. Oh, dang it. I was going to say in the United States, and then I was going to say, can you guess where it is? But all right, you figured it out. It's probably going to be California anyway. So there's really only 3 bright blue states in the United States. California. So we have covered their crime wave previously. Our crime wave. This is our own backyard. Okay? Primarily robberies have contributed to this huge crime wave, but it has gotten worse. Significantly worse, okay? In Los Angeles, I could not make this up. I'm not creative enough. People are jumping onto moving trains, breaking bolts with bolt cutters, and looting entire train cars full of Amazon packages and other shipments, to the point where the primary problem is not even the loss of property. It is the fact that they are leaving behind so much trash and wrappers that the railroad is unusable. A train cannot go over it safely.
But Ishaan, when you were saying this, I had this visual in my head of the Wild West, you know, cowboys chasing trains on horses.
We might as well. We've got the bandanas, we've got the masks, we've got people. The only thing is we wouldn't have guns.
We wouldn't have horses.
We wouldn't have guns. And maybe horses. No, there are parts of California, if you go to like Salinas or...
No, I mean the bandits that are looting the trains, they're not on horses.
Perhaps. But the only prerequisite to robbing a train in Los Angeles right now is living in Los Angeles right now. There is nothing else that you need. It can be a family activity. Make a day of it.
It's ridiculous.
Seriously. And this is the hilarious part. Governor Newsom showed up at the railroad cleanup. Okay? And he was helping out. He was lifting up cardboard boxes. By the way, I was seeing the videos. There are actual construction vehicles there helping to lift huge swaths of cardboard boxes and wrappers. That's how much there is. Okay? But Governor Newsom showed up, and he had something a little bit erroneous to say. Check this out.
I see what you've been covering. I see what everybody's seen and asking myself, what going on? I mean, look like a third world country, these images, the drone images that were on the nightly news, day in and day out.
I love how he talks about this.
Oh, yeah, I know.
like
the
a
outrage.
spectator. The outrage. Who did this?
like,
Who is the governor here? By the way, I don't want to take credit for that line. That was a joke coined by Michael Knowles, but it was so good that I had to say it. It's like such faked outrage. This is, by the way, this is like the pinnacle
I think
of
his
leftist.
outrage is real, but I don't think he made the connection of, the policies that he's been pushing over the last, 2-3 years.
Don't just forget just the policies. Check this out. The reason this is so interesting is because of what Newsom has said just a couple months prior. Listen.
Some people that say some of the policies championed by Democrats, like Prop 47 and others, are making crime worse.
Yeah,
what do you say to that?
Well, the evidence doesn't back it up. The last 3 decades, we've actually seen a significant decline in crime in the state. Those initiatives have given us the ability to invest an unprecedented amount of money back into communities and evidence-based recovery programs, trauma programs, prevention programs, job programs. So we're not going to walk away from that.
Okay, honey. Here's the thing, Newsom. I don't know what your statistic for 3 decades has to do with this because Prop 47 passed in 2014. So...
Okay, regardless. He said 3 decades, crime has been coming down.
Why would you change your policies then?
Yeah.
Why would you...
Yeah, why?
What's the phrase? Don't fix it if it ain't broke. Or if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
No need to reinvent the wheel. But
Yeah.
not for Democrats.
I don't understand, the outrageousness when, they're encountering these lawlessness.
This looks like a third world country.
I know, right?
Who's in charge here?
It's ridiculous. I don't like these images. And then the other one, right, with Nancy Pelosi. A few weeks back, she was like, I don't understand where this wave of lawlessness in this country is coming
attitude
from.
of lawlessness
Yeah,
comes from.
where is this coming from?
I don't know where it's coming from. Maybe you do.
I mean,
and we're like,
you're
look in the mirror.
Policy
Look in the mirror.
Yeah, I know. You're passing policy to decriminalize crime.
Exactly. And then you're surprised when people are like, oh, so I can get away with this no matter what I do? So long as you're not a white male. That's the only prerequisite. As long as you're not a white male.
Yes,
and you can get away with it.
True.
Oh.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. This is consistent with Democratic policies. They need to invent the problem so that they can offer you the solution. And not just the solution. They have to offer you a piecemealed solution. Because in a year, they need you to get the booster to the solution. This is how they work. This is how they continue to maintain their importance. They did it with welfarism back in the 1960s. They did it with crime. They did it with COVID. They did it with economic recovery. They have done it on every single turn. They need to engineer the problem so that they can threaten you with taking away the solution. Now, here's the thing. In terms of crime, retail theft in California, we've seen several smash and grab robberies across the state, which has led to employees quitting and customers afraid to go to stores. This is actually hampering businesses reopening. So hopefully that makes it a little bit more important. Maybe now it can be on Governor Newsom's, front page priorities, as soon as he realizes that he is indeed the governor. So anyway, let's move on because we already covered the Democratic states, and this is what happens when they're caught off guard, when they're caught without their prime excuse. Where's the GOP to blame? Where's the GOP to blame? Where's that nasty GOP to blame? Oh, they don't exist in my state. Dang. But why don't we move forward into the bureaucracy? Again, if you feel like we're going too fast, listen, it's nothing personal. Just too many failures, not enough time. So the Department of Labor...
Sad but true.
The Department of Labor voluntarily retracted the OSHA emergency temporary standard, the vaccine or test mandate, on January 26th. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, didn't the Supreme Court strike it down? Sort of. The Supreme Court technically said, we believe that these people are likely to prevail, that this is unlawful, but all we're doing right now is saying it won't go into effect while it works its way through the courts of appeals. And because of this, OSHA has now said, okay, never mind, we'll drop it so we don't have to go through the whole arduous case process. So this is OSHA in some sense, in one sense or another, this is Democrats actually conceding that they know they've lost this battle.
Yeah, I mean, it was a battle that they should have lost, I think, quite rightfully. Because,
they couldn't get this through Congress either.
Yeah, right?
I mean, if he'd gotten congressional approval, that would be one thing. He tried to do this in a roundabout, how can I unilaterally execute laws way.
Absolutely. You're right. Biden actually, his first try was to get this through Congress, where it got shot down.
On December 8th, it was shot down in the Senate, not just by a 51% vote. Okay, this was not just Republicans shooting it down.
Yeah.
He couldn't even align all the members of his own party under a mandate.
And that makes sense, right? Like, I'm pro-vaccines.
So
I've been vaccinated. I've been boosted.
I have not been boosted yet, but
You also got your vaccine late because they weren't available for children. But the point is, I don't think that it's correct to force people to get vaccinated against their will.
I think that we live in a country that does not award you. I want to correct this. This is the opening line in not the opening line, but it's one of the lines in our Declaration of Independence, where we said, we kind of copied John Locke, where we said men were born with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What we were basically saying is the government can't take away these rights because the government did not give them to you. These were ordained for you when you were born. This is a reminder to the government that we are never allowed to infringe upon this.
Let's talk about the supply chain.
The supply chain, okay?
Right.
Now, we haven't covered this in a while, and news has stopped covering this, but they're still here. we still have supply chain issues. There are still tons of ships just off the coast of LA.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing rising inflation in part due to the supply chain chokes, but more importantly, even for Joe Biden and his party, they passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill last year, and I think I believe all the projects under that bill are going to be delayed because there is a lack of supplies, because of our supply chain choke that continues to, give us issues and problems.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that we are still in a pandemic and there are certain vital supplies. Yes, Omicron is very hopeful. It definitely means that things are looking up, but that does not mean that we are running a surplus of ventilators and masks, and we just don't need the ones that are sitting off the California coast.
Right, exactly. I mean, and we don't know what the next variant is, right?
So, we don't. Yeah. It could be Omicron Deadly Edition.
Exactly.
But even beyond just critical supplies and the bipartisan infrastructure bill, individual businesses are still struggling to get products to their locations in the United States. So that some of these people are just turning to air shipping or to other ports, and guess who bears the brunt of that cost? It's you. It's me. It's you. My local coffee shop actually raised prices because of inflation and because of the supply chain. So we have personally felt it, and you might not notice it, but in aggregate, that is not the kind of economic policy you want to be pursuing alongside historic inflation. Okay? Speaking of inflation, why don't we go over to the executive branch? Now, the executive branch is related to the bureaucracy, except it's like the high level. It's the managers of bureaucracy. So we already covered inflation here, far better than Kamala Harris's witch cackle ever could. You saw it on the thumbnail. That's why you clicked.
Sorry, that's funny.
So here's my problem with the inflation thing. First, we were told that inflation doesn't exist, and you're crazy to even think it. The same way that AOC tried to gaslight us with the increase in crimes. Okay?
They're not really panning out.
No, and then we were told that inflation is transitory. So you're right. Perhaps it does exist. Well, which one is it? Well, let's not get lost in the details. But it definitely exists, but it's transitory. Okay, it's been here for a couple months now. What do you say to that? Well, that some inflation can actually be good, but we can't afford food or gas. That's okay. You'll get thinner. It's healthy for you. You're too obese. This is our way of combating the obesity pandemic.
I swear, the failures of this administration are so catastrophic that it's honest. Like, I mean,
I have more. I'm not done with this narrative. Because then Biden was caught on a hot mic calling Peter Doocy.
Oh my goodness.
A stupid SOB.
Oh my goodness, that was.
By the way, do you know what Ron DeSantis did about that?
Oh,
the governor of Florida. After Biden was caught on hot mic calling Peter Doocy, Fox News White House correspondent, a stupid SOB, he was not as kind as I am, he said it. But Ron DeSantis actually brought it up in a press conference like this. Check this out.
Mike, I don't know if I'm supposed to call you Mike or some SOB. How's it work now? What's the, no, Mike, I like that better. Well, we're going to see. I mean,
yeah, Ron DeSantis is very camera friendly. It's one of the things I really appreciate about him. But it is true that mild inflation can help stimulate an economy because individuals want to go buy goods now before the prices will presumably get higher. And it's definitely better than deflation, which is when prices consistently go down because then people actually hold out. They say, well, let me wait. I think the price will go even further down. So, but we've well surpassed that threshold. Typically 2 to 3% annually is the ideal amount of inflation. Right now we have well surpassed that. And then the other problem here is that the response from this administration has just been totally incoherent.
Yeah.
We have literally heard as many iterations as it can. First it was, let's deny its existence. Then let's pretend it's temporary. Then let's say it's good. Then when we finally can't deny anything anymore, we'll just start ignoring the problem and stop taking questions about it.
It's all about Freedom to Vote Act. Forget it.
It's all about the Freedom to Vote Act. You know, inflation would go away if it wasn't just for the darn GOP. If it wasn't just for the darn GOP, freedom would go away. If everyone would get their booster shots, inflation would go away. But seriously, Biden he's not the emperor, but he is the president with no clothes on. Okay, he is so easily influenced. Pallavi, you said this really well just a moment ago backstage. What were you saying? It basically takes one Democrat to march into the White House and tell him what to do for him to do it.
Oh, right. I mean, he is an indecisive leader. He basically goes wherever, whichever way the wind is blowing, like a buoy in the ocean. It's this feeble leadership that is the cause of a ton of problems that the Americans are facing today.
Forget just what Americans are facing. See, they can blame whoever they want, wherever they want, when there is someone to blame. But right now, Biden cannot blame Congress or the GOP or people who are unvaccinated for one thing, and that is foreign policy, because that is entirely his domain. This was all under his control, no restrictions, basically. And he has still failed, okay? Because here's the thing, when you project such feebility, is that a word, feebility? I feel like it should
Feebleness.
be. Feebleness, there we go. When you project such feebleness on an international stage, right now, I do not think that President Vladimir Putin, I don't think that he can even afford to not invade Ukraine simply for domestic reasons. I think that if he does it, he will be perceived as a weak leader. Okay? Because Biden basically greenlit Putin to do anything short of a full-on invasion of Ukraine.
A little bit's okay.
Just a little bit. I think this is the problem, the way the Democrats think in terms of foreign policy. It's incompatible. Because foreign policy, you have to think in the long term. You have to think in the what have they been planning? What is their grand scheme?
They're not strategic. That's very true. And I think they have this idealism, this view of global harmony and this idealism that is just not realistic.
But see, I think it's really easy to isolate foreign policy issues. The thing is, that's not how foreign policy works, because your enemy is not isolating the issues. They have a grand scheme, and you need to piece that together. Sure, you can greenlight one natural gas pipe, but then what happens when they want to build another one? And what happens when you notice that they're starting to only build them to NATO member nations? Half these members know that if they impose sanctions, that they're going to get their natural gas cut off. Putin doesn't really care if it's just the United States or if it's just France or if it's just Belgium. It needs to be all these states doing it in unison to actually have a significant impact on the Russian economy. So anyway, because of these short-sighted policies and the step-by-step allowing our country and ally countries to become dependent on our enemies, we are basically being plunged into what could turn into a literal all-out combat war.
Right.
Okay. This was entirely Biden. Don't anyone tell me the GOP had to do with this, or somehow it was the unvaxxed, or somehow it was the white people again. Don't anyone come at me with this. Okay, this was 100% Joe Biden and nobody else. He has no excuses that he can use this time. But bottom line, Democrats ruin everything they touch. I told you this at the beginning, and I hope that you see what I mean now. Okay? And here's the thing, the voters know it. The electorate knows it. Democrats are screwed. Come November, Democrats are screwed, and probably an election or two beyond that, because you can't recover from this terrible of a situation quickly, and Democrats know it too. Here's how you know they know it. Justice Stephen Breyer announced his resignation a couple days ago. Okay, he's not stupid. You don't get to the Supreme Court bench and not learn how to play politics. He knows that Democrats are likely to lose their Senate majority come November, and he wants to make sure that a liberal justice gets appointed in his place.
I mean, if you look at it, Biden when he came into office, he came into a pretty great state of affairs. The economic recovery due to COVID had already started. The vaccine was ready. The distribution plans were ready. There was relative peace in the Middle East.
Forget about a conflict in Europe. There was nothing.
There was no conflict.
There was relative peace all around the world.
Yeah, there was world peace. I mean, relatively.
His job was to do basically nothing.
He just had to keep his hands off the controls.
He had to sit back and watch it all go down. He had guaranteed approval ratings because of things that previous administration had done for him.
Exactly. I mean, Trump took a lot of flack, and unfortunately, he was out of office before any of his efforts could see the light of day. But Biden would have...
Literally, his job was to do nothing. This was the reason that... I mean, let's be honest. This was the reason that people voted him into office. His job was to stay off of Twitter, and to just sit in the White House. Little did they know that he would be taking Trump's level of obnoxiousness and codifying it in statutes.
Yeah. I mean, he just basically, whatever he touched, he turned it into a disaster. In 1 year, I am shocked at the number of failures, his administration has had.
Whenever I talk about the Biden administration, I always accidentally end up saying, no one else has seen this in the course of one term. I always have to remind myself it's only been a year.
A year.
I always, I'm like,
yeah.
How fast is this guy at devolving?
No, I mean, it's like, okay, I'm going to just, we saw what he did with Afghanistan. We know what he's doing with inflation. He's focusing on non-issues like Freedom to Vote Act. He has, spending bills that are borderline lunacy.
Borderline? How generous of you.
Well, I mean, okay, fine.
But look, the point is, if you are fed up of this nonsense, listen, November 2022, and maybe a couple elections beyond that, because let's be honest, they ain't going to fix themselves. This is your chance to shine. Make yourself heard. Vote. Okay? Thank you guys for watching.
Hey folks, this is Pallavi. Thank you for watching this episode of Politics Corner. Do me a favor, please follow us on YouTube or your favorite podcast provider. And while you're at it, why don't you also follow us at Politics Corner Official on Instagram. We'll see you next time. Thank you.